Good evening, everyone. My name is Christian Karasevich, and you are watching this week's episode of Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing talk show. And I'm joined tonight by my co-host, as always, Nick Rishween. But we also have a very special guest tonight. We've got Ross Quintana on. Ross and I know we go back all the way to Blab, which is a long time ago. When it comes to social media marketing, because everything changes so quickly. Nick, I think we were also on, is that where you also met Ross?
Ross and I were just talking about that in chat before we got started. It is where I met Ross, and we sat in on multiple Blab shows together, but I don't think Ross and I ever met face-to-face in any one of the shows that we were on. So this is our first time digitally meeting face-to-face.
Very cool. So how are we looking over on Facebook, by the way? Are we looking pretty good?
Looks good on Facebook.
Okay, let me just get this other piece set up. But I'm going to just say a quick hello to everybody. We'll bring Ross in, and we will get going. So just a quick hello, everybody. If you want to send me any tweets during the show, it's at CKROKS. I'm also going to bring Nick up here real quick.
And we have Joe Wilson visiting us in the Facebook feed. Hey, Joe, good to see you. Thanks for being a regular attendee, audience member. So we have some stories for you tonight. While Christian gets us set up, I'm going to talk a little bit here. It's actually a bit of a Blab reunion, and actually the four people who are watching right now, which are the three of us, Joe Wilson, and our guest, or two of us, our guest, Ross Quintana. And am I saying that right, Ross? Is it Quintana or Quintana?
You could say Quintana. Hispanic will correct you and say it's Quintana, but we're going to go with Quintana here.
Okay, so Ross Quintana. So those are all folks that I have met from Blab or through Blab. Christian, Ross, and Joe Wilson. So it's an interesting little throwback here to the old Blab days. So we have four major stories for you tonight, and I do, before we get to those, I enjoy these stories tonight because they're mostly about the platforms that I enjoy the most. So I like that. But I'd like to have you bring Ross in on the screen for us tonight.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to have Ross, and forgive me, Ross, but I am a little unsure about your background, but I do know that you're writing a book. Could you give us a little bit about your background? So, a little introduction about yourself. I just remember when Christian said, I'm going to ask Ross Quintana to join us, and I thought, awesome. I remember sitting in many chats with you on the Blab days. So, what have we got, Ross? Tell us about the book. Give us an intro.
I'm doing the manual zoom out there was me pushing my chair back because I was like, I'm not going to mess with stuff right now. We're going. Anyway, yeah, I am the founder of Social Magnets, so that's one of my key brands, although I have a lot of projects, not products yet, but projects that I work on. A lot of the stuff I do with influencer marketing, I'm working with Adobe. As a matter of fact, shouts out if you can get their shirt up in there, yeah. They're doing some really cool stuff with customer experience and the whole management side of that in the cloud and everything. Also, yeah, I've got a few books. I'm a polymath, so I got my hands in a lot of things. I run 10, 15 projects at a time. Plus, I got my 7 kids, so people are like, "What? How do you do all that?" But it's like, that's how I operate. So, yeah, I've got a few books in the work. The one we were talking about, it's called Deconstructing the Secret Sauce. And we were talking about Blab, and I was saying that I'm using them as a case study because they're a classic example of a company that didn't understand their own secret sauce. They built something, the universe responded to it in a positive way, And then I remember them saying in like one of their last blogs when they said they were going to go do something else. And in my own conversations with them, they said, well, that's not really what we don't want to build this for marketers, and we don't really want to do this for this. We wanted to do something else. And it's kind of like, well, if you do something and you have some kind of significant success, you go with that, right? That's what the world has said they liked. So it doesn't matter if you thought, well, I thought we were going to sit around and watch TV together. Well, that's a different thing, and you don't have a proof of concept for that. So you got to follow, where your customers say they want, and if they want more purple, marshmallows, you give them more purple marshmallows. That's how success is found in the tech world, and even big companies. We're going to dig into it tonight, right? We're going to dig into it with Twitter, with Snapchat, Instagram. You have to find your way. What's Twitter's issues been that they're out there and they're doing something, and yet they haven't found, like, their advertising platform hasn't really taken hold. They haven't found their place there, and they're doing a bunch of new stuff, and we're going to dig into what, and I've definitely got some ideas of what I think they can do to turn that around. But you've got to pay attention, and you've got to find your way. It doesn't matter if you've got the users. You may not have the revenue. You may have the users and the revenue, but then the environment is shifting, and you've got to know how to react. Well, what do we do when like with Snapchat? What Snapchat do when Instagram says, hey, we're going to be a Snapchat too? You have to react. You can't sit back and say, oh no, I've seen some slides where people are like, oh, Snapchat's still king and all this. You can't stand around saying we're still king. You'll be a pauper, a commoner, in no time. If you start saying, hey, we're still king, someone comes up with their sword and is like, you're not the king anymore. No, it's my kingdom. It's like, yeah.
And I think that Blab was onto something. They could have been the kingmaker, and they just decided not to. They decided to do a pivot rather than maybe they didn't have what we all thought as community members that they had, but I feel that they may have. But they thought that the user numbers had plateaued and decided that, well, maybe we'll do something else.
They had the fail fast mentality down pretty great. Sometimes you can fail too fast, where it's like, wait a minute, you weren't actually a failure. You were going to be a success, but you decided to pack it up and call it fail fast.
That's right. Well, with that, Christian, are you ready? Are you set for us to all go on screen here and get started on some stories?
Yeah, actually, I think I am. By the way, how does the audio sound? Because I actually am using a different mic tonight. I've got a lavalier on.
Sounds fine to me.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, you sound good.
So we are ready to go live.
Well, we are live.
Yes. So what do we have? Which topic do you want to start with? Because we've got so many great things to talk about tonight.
There's some good ones. I think we'll start with Twitter, and I'm going to post this. We'll post this over in Facebook for our users there. Twitter teams up with Bloomberg for streaming news is the first story of the night. And let me post that. I thought this was cool. Of course, as you know, Christian, I'm a big fan of Twitter. I enjoy it a great deal. And I'm continuing to find more and more uses for it. And they've really been going hard into live streaming. And they found their first partner for round-the-clock streaming television, and that will be Bloomberg. Social media company this is a story out of the Wall Street Journal. It came out on April 30th. And the social media company is joining forces with the global financial news outlet to create a service that will stream news produced solely for Twitter 24 hours a day. So it's not going to be repurposed news or something that's going to their television channels. This will be a service, new content that's going to be streamed on Twitter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Most important news for an intelligent, they say it's going to be focused on the most important news for an intelligent audience around the globe, and it's going to be broader in focus than our existing network, which is interesting. That comes from Bloomberg's media chief, or chief executive officer. Partnership would be, this is a few days old now, but it was going to be announced at a Monday event for Bloomberg LP, which they were holding for their advertisers, and which would be where the company founder Michael Bloomberg and Jack Dorsey, Twitter CEO, were both going to be present. They have the channel, which has yet to be named and is expected to begin operating this fall, so just maybe 3 or 4 months out, won't simply rebroadcast footage from Bloomberg's existing television operation, but will be made up of live news reporting from the news outlets' bureaus around the world, which is good, as well as curated and verified mix of video posted on Twitter by the social media platform's users. So interesting way that they're going to use some of the mix of video and produced by actual Twitter users. I think that's very interesting. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this, Ross? Do you think this is a good move for Twitter, and will you be a viewer of such content?
Well, I'll say a couple of things. Number one, love what Bloomberg does. I think they do a great job on many fronts, and I think they have a wonderful team over there with all their programming and everything. But for Twitter, here's the thing that I think is the big piece. And sometimes you got to dig dive. You got to dig dive. We're going with that. You got to deep dive on that and find the real story. And I think here, in the big picture, it's really about unique content. You see, let's flip this around. Let's talk about TV everywhere, TVE, right? And you look at what's happening with TV and how people are trying to compete with the cord cutters. You know, the cable companies are trying to come in and they're trying to say, yeah, we got to get people watching our shows. They got all this content. They were literally content kings. Content was king, and they were the kings. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Now they're scrambling. And I saw at Adobe Summit, actually, NBC was there talking about a bunch of the new stuff that they're going to be doing to try and dig in and using data and all this to dig into the markets. But TV everywhere, it's a funny thing, is like, okay, cool, now people are taking their TV. We want them to take their TV with them. But what I said the other day, I think it was in a Twitter chat, I said, you know what? The problem is the consumption is not the same. So when you think about sitting down, and I don't have time, right? Look at the stats for video. They're not going to go past probably 10 minutes, maybe 15 max, but you've got a half-hour show. And then they want to cram more commercials in there. The problem is that when you actually will watch the whole show, it's not like somebody, you know, putting out a blog post or a video where they're like, okay, they watch 2 minutes of it, but it's like a 10-minute video. No, if someone's watching an episode of their favorite show, they're going to watch the whole thing, but they can't. And so now we've got this real problem. And this is what's happening with this whole live TV coming in, is the big aha is to me, is that they're going to actually make the content for the platform. You know, TV right now is trying to say, well, let's take your content, you're going, you got your mobile, you want to go? Cool, we'll be there with you. But people are like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't finish my 1 hour show or my 2 hour movie when I'm on my way on the bus, or where I'm standing in line while I'm shopping. So I think that's the big aha here, is that they're going to get these guys to come in, but more importantly, they're going to start to drive this with smaller content, but that's at the high production of full-size content. And I think what you're going to see, my prediction, you know, a few years out here, 3-4 years out there, is that you're going to see all of those shows being chewed up. You're going to see all that. You're going to see TV take its next evolution, where we're going to have that half-hour show broken into 3 10-minute mini, I called them minisodes, right? Mini episodes, where you can consume it, but where the storyline was actually written and designed so that it made sense for you to be able to stop at 10 minutes and then pick up and start, so it wasn't this awkwardness where people are doing that manually themselves. I think that's the big story of this.
Yeah, interesting. Christian, what are your thoughts here?
This actually, you know, when you mentioned the minisodes a minute ago, Ross, it reminded me of the Snapchat deal they had with Disney. You remember that, Nick? Mm-hmm. Talk about how, like, you know, they were going to start producing shows for Disney, you know, and I think it's definitely going to get that way, where you're going to have really short episodes, you know, to where people are going to be able to tune in. For instance, like we do these shows, and you know, we have nights where sometimes and here's the thing, I like the fact that we know how many people are viewing the show. We know how many people are viewing the show. We know how many people are watching the replays. And if I take that and compare it to like a normal TV episode, you're right, absolutely right, Ross. TV has to change. because it like people want to know how many people, like you can't say, oh hey, I only got 5 people or 10 people viewing my show tonight. It also though is on the replays, and so whereas like TV, they were like they just pump content out, and it's like there's too much content on. People can't they have to tune into something that's going to keep them entertained. And so I like the fact that like we're actually starting to focus more on the storytelling of what we're doing with shows. Coming down to like saying, hey, let's make this for a platform and let's keep it at this particular length. Granted, yes, it does fragment things a bit because if you're going to put something, for instance, you're going to put something out on like Twitter, as in a longer episode versus something on say Snapchat, which is different, versus say putting it up on YouTube, and you might have something else. You have different storylines that could be told. You really need to be able to almost like kind of intertwine these somehow to have like all these different little pieces, that tell like the big picture.
It's a funny thing because I'm very nerdy and data driven and analytical, and so when I'm creating content, this is what I'm doing, right? I create my content. I've got my blog post. I might have a 2-minute audio clip. I might have a 10-minute video. And then when I'm going on Instagram or Snapchat or something, I'm telling the story again in a different format, in a different way, where you have to boil it down. And you know what? I don't get to put in all the fluffy details of, the radiant field was over. I don't get that many words. It's like Twitter. What's it make you do? Like, how do you get good at being profound and delivering value in 140 characters? Well, that's one of the best things that Twitter has done. The hashtag yesterday was like, I love Twitter because, or Twitter is great because this, and a lot of people, recognize, I think it was actually Pam Moore who said that it forces essentially people to be more concise.
Exactly.
And I've said that for a long time, which is that's one of the great things. So it's like, how do I take this 2-hour movie? How do I take this half-hour TV episode and then break it into 10 minutes that make sense individually? And then how do I break those 10 minutes into 10 seconds that make sense individually? The content creation, right? We think about TV as owning the space. Like they've been the storytellers. They've got the production quality. They've got professional writers. They've got all this. But they're going to actually have to flip around and learn from content creators how to really tell those stories on these platforms in a compelling way that it stands alone. That your Snapchat story stands alone for that whole episode and can tell the story within a series of segments.
In one of our audience members here and a former guest, Joe Wilson, tells us it's not all about TV. It's also about behaviors. Monitors are just different sizes today. So I'm watching a lot of the content that I watch that interferes with my TV watching time on the mobile phone. So that has changed my behavior. I don't want us to get off too far on this one. We've gone, so I'm going to move us to our next story for the night. And if you're watching on Facebook, I'd like you to please do us a favor, share it out, share it with friends, like it, heart it, whatever. We'd love to see that you're active. We'd appreciate any shares that you could give us.
And by the way, make sure you're also commenting, and asking questions, because
please
that's
ask
the whole
questions.
point. Like, it's not just, hey, it's Ross and Nick and myself like having conversation. Like, we love that part, but we also want to hear from you. We want to hear any questions or any ideas that you have.
Comments are great. If you're smart like Joe Wilson, which I'll give him a hat tip here, and you give good comments, then we bring him on the show, and they're one more item to think about. And it's how he shows that he's a thought leader and a hustler and a grinder. He'll get that inside joke. Facebook rewards QR codes dangle discounts for offline purchases. So this I thought was interesting, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and maybe one of you will change my mind on this and say this is something I'm not going to use. But I'm open to being changed or having my mind changed on this. Facebook wants to prove it drives brick-and-mortar foot traffic with its latest feature test. TechCrunch had discovered, and this was a TechCrunch article from May 1st, TechCrunch has discovered a previously unreported Facebook feature where users can scan a personalized QR code to score discounts or bonuses when they buy something in person at certain shops, or I'm assuming those are participating shops. Some users see the rewards feature listed in the More tab of their Facebook mobile app, which I have never been to as a mobile app user. So that's why I think, maybe I'll go to it now, but unlikely to really drive me into getting any in-store purchases. When asked, Facebook told us that it has been running the test over the past few months and provided this statement: to help businesses continue to connect with customers where they are, we're running a small test that enables people to use the Facebook app to collect and redeem rewards when they make a purchase at a participating store. Again, I've never been to the rewards section. I haven't been below, essentially, much of what I see in the More section, I'm not using on a regular basis. Town Hall, Instant Games, Shops, Moves, any of that stuff. So, but I'm open to hear the reason. I do like the fact that they're trying to help out brick and mortar stores and create some more foot traffic. What are your thoughts, Ross?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to have them. Here's a funny thing about this play, actually. I think this, as many things with Facebook, I think there's what people see, and there's the PR and we're doing this because we love you and we want to hug you, and then there's the actually deep strategic reasoning behind it. That's where my mind goes. That's where my space is. So for me, this is it doesn't matter as much the adoption of who's seeing the button and who's using it right now. I do think that there's a big play there, but it's hidden. It's really subtle under the skin. And what the big play is here actually is they want physical purchase data. Right now, all the data is digital. Amazon's got data. Everybody's, they've got purchase data that's amazing. Facebook doesn't exactly have all that purchase data. They've got, some from ad data, and they can link that to purchases. But what they don't have, that I believe that they want, is they want the data from your register. They want to know, they're a data company, right? They scrape all your data, but when they know everything about you and the fact of what you watched on TV last night and where you went for dinner and all this and that, but they don't know what you bought necessarily, and Google's doing some stuff with some image AI stuff that'll start to be able to tell you based on what you ate. They can tell you how many calories and where you were. But aside from that, Facebook wants all this data. And the thing is their main customer is businesses. So those people who not only are they going to capture the non-online businesses, but then on top of that, they're going to be able to go out and more for ad revenue, but more importantly, they're going to get that data. And what's going to happen is eventually your data offline, and here's the big play, your offline data and your online data are going to come together, and what you're going to see is the birth of online offline ad retargeting. So that's the play 2-3 moves out, where it's like you walked into the store and they see what you bought and they see all this stuff, and they're going to be able to retarget you and use that with your online profile, knowing the things that you like. It's going to build a more complete profile, and then also it's going to allow them to sell back to the businesses who gave up that data, and tell them, hey, we know more about your customers and we can actually help you sell more in your store, not just online. There's a lot of plays going on. They're playing a long game, and it's definitely under the surface, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, but I got to ask you, with my usage in mind, do you think that others will take on this, will adopt and use this particular feature? I don't know what the adoption rates are in most of the section that they refer to in this. Or do they just need some?
Here's the thing. Once they get going and they've got the ear of the brick and mortar companies, right, saying, hey, we can boost you up, and who's hurting? And why are they hurting? They're hurting for the online thing. So then they come back like the gangster and say, hey, we're going to give you protection. You're going to need protection from, right? They're saying, hey, you're suffering. You don't know what to do in the digital space. We're crushing it. You can give us your money over there. Or, hey, you know what? Why don't we help you? Why don't we help you with your customers in there? You can take them from offline, the thing that we've pulled customers in over here. Now we'll trickle them back out to you. And then they're going to get the bricks and mortar stores to start promoting that and telling people what? Hey, are you using the Facebook app? The Facebook, right? Because they're going to be trying to drive it because they're going to see that as their benefit. Number one, they're feeding the dragon, right? They're going to end up pushing even more business and more data to Facebook in multiple streams, and then they're going to make it absolutely important and integrate it in their business. And as all those businesses start spending real advertising dollars, local advertising dollars, both offline and online, to promote this, because now they're running their promotion through Facebook because it's already built in, it's more targeted, you can get that online data to know more, and they're going to start to categorize your personal business customers into their databases and resell them more. Like, all this stuff is going to play. So yeah, in a way, the adoption almost is secondary, right? It's like the afterthought, because not only are they going to drive it, the demand for the adoption is going to go up when anyone adopts it. Then there's the fear of missing out there that, we need to do our coupons through Facebook now. We need to do this because we're going to get some extended targeting and more reach to our own customers. And then they're going to feed them all that data about their customers and what's happening in their stores as well. So they can turn around and say, hey, you know what? I got your store, I got your little boutique, and I got your 10 competitors' boutiques. You want data on them? Cool, we can sell it to you. You want to get their customers? We can start targeting ads to their customers without you. It's kind of a wading into the pool. Maybe they weren't Facebook ad generating, but now they've got something tangible that they're integrating and saying, hey, why don't we get some of your customers? There's your competitors' customers right over there. We can get them into foot traffic. We're not just telling you about it's online now. And I think that's going to be compelling. Yeah,
excellent. Christian, what are you thinking?
I absolutely think that this is a hidden play here. When you were reading through this, I was already thinking, one of the biggest issues that, people are having right now is like just the retail side. I feel it's an untapped area. There's a lot of things that Facebook has come out with that, over the years, hey, we'll put beacons in your store and things like that to help a business. And a lot of businesses have not taken advantage of that. Now, Ross, tying into the stuff you're talking about, the ability to then say, hey, let's retarget you. That makes so much sense, because if I'm a business and I'm a brick and mortar business, what's the one thing I'm saying now? I'm saying, hey, I need to get my business on Facebook. I need to get a Facebook page. I need to get, I need to advertise. But guess what? They're all missing the same point, which is, they're missing the point of how do I get people into my store, to come buy stuff? It's good that I can, get in front of more of the right people, but they're still missing, my message is not hitting the audience. In this way, they're able to use that data to really, really learn more about who their customers are. It doesn't matter what business you are. If you're a little, mom and pop business, you're a major, a clothing retailer, you need to know more about your customers, and they're starting to tune you out. And they're tuning you out because there's too much other noise going on. They're online, they want so then you have to try to be cool to keep up, and so I think this makes a lot of sense. And I think the more fascinating thing about this whole online offline thing is, for instance, if we take Amazon has really been pushing the whole online side of things, right? And then what happened? Well, everybody started saying, well, hey, nobody's going to Best Buy anymore. They're doing showrooming now at Best Buy, and they're just buying it right there on Amazon. But now what is Amazon doing? Amazon is saying, hey, let's get into the retail space and let's buy up, let's put a store in the airport with just the top 20 books, whatever that we have on Amazon. So now Amazon also is probably, I think at some point they're going to go into having a showroom just like a Best Buy maybe. So they're really starting to make their expansion here. So they're basically saying, it's the online and the offline. They're just, ping-ponging back and forth, which is really fascinating.
And they win at the end of the day. They're going to win on both fronts. And I think, here's another little kind of way out there, and maybe they're seeing this, maybe they aren't. If not, send me my damn check, Facebook. Look, here's the bigger play too, is contextual advertising, relevance, deep relevance. Let's talk about online relevance. Nobody's doing that. What happens when you just stopped by and picked up your coffee or your pizza? Or I know you got a red box, and now I get a targeted ad saying, hey, right next door, we got pizzas and we got a sale on there and we want that to come in. Hey, you just bought this hat, or this shirt. How about a great pair of shoes over at Nordstrom's? Because you just went into a clothing store or store that doesn't sell the shoes, but we know right next to you, and we know your customer, and we know their tendencies, and we know their favorite brand, and let's send them next door, because guess what? We're going to have personalized sales, which will come down probably, 3-4 years down the road, where it's like your favorite brand of shoes, we're going to give you that 10% because we want to get you over there, right? Because everything's a register now. We want you buying something else along the way, and then maybe I'll even charge a couple of the other stores along the way while you're walking to Nordstrom's to just highlight anything in your store that I already know would work for that purchaser while they're walking by the store. I mean, that's when it all comes together here.
Ross, what you're mentioning, I picture in my mind, I don't know that it'll be as extravagant as it was in the movie, but I picture the ads that we witnessed in the movie Minority Report. Yep. That sounds like what you're describing, what they're trying to accomplish.
We saw those at Adobe Summit. Adobe has that. They had a digital sign out there, and different people came, and it changed the ad, tuned in to who they were, what gender, like their age group, and it reconfigured those ads in real time. Like, it's not just something that's in that movie. I can tell you right now, it's already been built and it's already getting ready to be rolled out. That's some of the things that I do over there with them, is talk about the personalization of customer experience. Like, it is going crazy right now.
It's on the way. Okay, I have not yet seen that. So thank you for letting me know that that's out there.
So by the way, the other thing that's really cool about this, and I'm thinking about like Ross's thought here. You remember, you know how Pinterest also has the new Pinterest Lens feature, where you can scan stuff and it will like give you suggestions of like outfits, for instance, or stuff like that, things that pair well together. You start to like, when you really take all this stuff and you start to combine all of it, you end up with some really amazing opportunities to get the exact things that people want or they're interested in, based on their buying habits or based on their viewing habits or what they're posting about or what they're engaging with. Like, you really have an opportunity to get the right stuff in front of them, both in the, the physical space and the online space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the essence underneath the skin of experience business, which people are. That's kind of the next thing. It was like digital transformation, and then it was like blah blah blah, and then the next level right now is experience business, which is really holistically grabbing the entire experience, and then when that marries up with personalization at scale, and that's the stuff that Adobe's doing. Like, this starts to get crazy, and I've always said about marketing. You hate marketing because it's showing me a tampon commercial and I'm not interested. You hate marketing because it's showing me a brand that I think sucks or a car I don't even like. But if it shows you something relevant to you that's amazing that you want, and it does that, that's like actually a human referral. It's like a personal referral. Someone who knows you and says, hey, I know your favorite beers. And I'll tell you what, your friend comes over and says, oh, you got to try this one. This one's great. You like coffee stouts? Oh, my gosh, you're going to love this one. And you know what? I don't sit there and try and click away from my friend. I'm not trying to flick off of them or X my friend, right? I'm not. I appreciate them because they made a great recommendation. And that's what, we're in the ABCs of that right now with all of the ad networks, but that's the end game, is that real personal referral that actually is valuable.
Excellent. So let's move these on to our two Snapchat stories of the week. They kind of go hand in hand because it is more advertising coming from Snapchat. But I want to wrap this up in time because Christian's got a couple of tools for us today. Our next story, and let me post this over on Facebook, is Snapchat is rolling out a new viewability score to help advertisers know if people see their video ads. Being in advertising, I will watch an occasional Snapchat ad right now, but I'm not generally in the mood when it comes up in the middle of the story. I do prefer a geo filter as an ad. So let's see what this comes from Adweek. and there was some recommendations from the ANA, and Snapchat isn't going that as far as letting the Media Rating Council independently audit its ad clients' campaigns, but they're working on it. So it's taking an MRC-minded step in that direction, while giving brands more insight into whether consumers actually see Snap ads. The full-screen vertical videos that have shaken up the industry in recent years is what this story is saying. Today, Snap, and this came out 3 days ago. So 3 days ago, Snapchat's parent company is starting to offer select advertisers a viewability score validated by measurement firm Moat. That's designed to meet the MRC's guidelines for whether videos warrant chargeable impressions. The score will become widely available on June 5th. So the guidelines are a little bit more in depth. For an advertiser, from an advertising perspective, I think this is good. I'm still not sold. I love Snapchat as a platform. I'm still not sold on the way that they are doing these ads in stories. I can still click away from it. I want to keep that ability as a user. But I don't know that that will stand forever. Ross, give me your thoughts on this.
Well, I think you hit two key points right there. The first one is that this is really this is a deeper dive in the attention economy. Like, if it makes sense, this article is centered around Snapchat, because Snapchat kind of from its inception, right, came out with this. It had better attention, right? And there's still tout a lot of numbers, it was like, oh, you're going to hold your finger on there, and then we talk about that it's on their phone, right? And you compare that to an ad, say, on TV, where I can ignore it. Most people if they're looking at their phone, they're seeing your ad. So when we talk about viewability, I think it's working in the real minutia here, because anything on your phone, if a slide-in ad or anything comes across there, my eyes are there, and I can consume the whole screen. This isn't something, hey, I'm in my car, did I see that sign when I drove by? No, maybe I didn't. There's no way to prove that I did. So that makes more sense in that type of market. But I get it. They're getting deeper and deeper, and all those little increases in knowing that people saw your ad, I think that's important. I think it's a little less relevant on that particular platform, and in the digital space, like heat maps and things like this, and eye tracking. I think that, number one, just what you talked about there and what we were talking about earlier, it comes down to relevance. Like, it isn't about getting in front of me or interrupting, to go Seth Godin. It's not about interruption marketing and saying, hey, you're sitting there with a friend of yours watching them play with their dog, and I want to all of a sudden tell you about a car that you're not in the market for. Like, no, there's nothing there. Now, if you know I have a dog and I'm watching theirs, or the connections me and my friends have, that we also both go snowboarding and we love snowboarding, maybe that becomes a little more relevant. Maybe you've got something relevant but I feel like there's better ways, and they've got to figure out kind of more relevance and contextual things to where, retargeting. Oh, I looked at a GoPro, but, I was doing that for fun. Or I'm looking at a video game, right? And I'm like, oh, cool, For Honor's coming out, and the new Call of Duty, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is, then I get back to work. Now this Call of Duty ad is sitting here popping up in my work, where it's a distraction. It's not making me purchase. A minute ago, they didn't realize that I was in play mode, and now I'm in work mode. So don't just follow me around blindly. And this comes back to this viewability score, is that it is more about analytics. See, all platforms, here's what it is. All platforms are realizing that their business is the analytics business, right? It's the attention economy, but it's the analytics, which is really their product that they have, their whole ad platform, and that's why Twitter is failing. We talked about Twitter earlier, because compared to Facebook, it isn't any other problem other than the type of data you get from Facebook and the type of conversations. And the richness of that data between friends is entirely different than what you say in 140 characters. So they need to figure out why that data is relevant and figure out the relevance and value. Then they can bump their value and say, well, look, we may not know this, this, and this, but we can target these things,
Right. Yeah, good points. Christian, what are your thoughts on the viewability score for Snapchat?
I think the one part that, at least for me, is probably the most fascinating with this is just the fact that a lot of people, like when they run ads, they always question, the validity of the charges.
Mm-hmm.
They wonder, like, hey, am I actually, did my ad actually get shown to the right people, or did the site just, charge me, and just, hey, they showed it, but not to the right people that I specified.
Correct.
So in that sense, I like the fact that they're going to be rolling this out. And granted, it's the scores will become widely available on June 5th, but I like the fact that this actually might even encourage other sites to start doing the same thing. So I think in a way it sets precedence, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I think it's something that Snapchat desperately needs, but I'm still stuck in the from a user point of view. I think Ross makes a good point. They got to target me with something relevant. The only ad that sticks out in my mind from Snapchat that I've seen is, I believe, Febreze, and I couldn't tell you that for certain. Why does that stick out in my mind? Because I'm a dog owner, I'm a dog lover, and it had a dog in it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something I'm going to say about that is, I was just going to say, Affinity, right? That's their focus for that. Because if you show me something, you don't show me a picture of a car I don't care about. But if I love your product, that's a great time. I would use it differently for Affinity audiences who already love your brand. Then I actually, hey, this is cool. It's a great way for you to retouch me during whenever, and then I don't mind if it's even directly relevant because I actually really like you. If all of a sudden if I got to watch an ad, I'd rather watch an ad for something I care about that I'm like, oh, cool, GoPro's got a new camera out, or a new lens for a camera I got, or something like that. Like, all of a sudden now that's where it makes sense. And I think that if they're doing it from left field and they're doing it, what I consider bad advertising, I think it doesn't make sense. And I also think that it comes down to that these big companies are pushing into social. Now everyone's telling them, why in the world would I need to spend money on Snapchat? That can't be legit.
Right.
But now when you have these mega companies coming in, you know what they want? That's where the viewability score comes, because they got to sell this, and they're coming back. They're not in love with the platform, right?
Right.
So they just want to say, hey, I gotta go justify this to my budget and I need to know that people are seeing this ad. So I think that's what's driving some of that too.
Okay, interesting.
Do you guys think there needs to be some sort of consolidation at some point with all of this? Because we're really, we're talking about just pushing more and more and more stuff, even though it's more targeted. It's still if somebody has a whole bunch of interest in things. I mean, it's just a lot of, that's a lot of stuff that's just going to just constantly get thrown at somebody. They're going to need, they're going to need sleep. They're going to need, some sort of break from the constant, push of oh, hey, the game, for instance, our attention span is going to be it's just going to be just completely shot,
Well, and I think that is a topic for an entirely different show, because I think that's that's more of a societal topic that we need to address, and I've seen it addressed in a show, sort of the Twilight Zone for technology show called Black Mirror, and it has an episode very similar to what you've just brought up. I think I'm not sure we could cover that with the time that we have remaining. So how about if I pivot us into our last article before we jump into some tools?
Sure.
So our last article is from Marketing Land, and it came out May 2nd, and this is Snap Ads Max Reach is Snapchat's version of the homepage takeover. So for one day, advertisers can get their vertical video ads seen by all U.S. viewers of Snapchat's various stories format. Snapchat has quietly been pitching advertisers on a way to reach everyone in the U.S. who views a story on a given day. Earlier this year, Snap added a new ad buying option that equates to the mobile app's version of a traditional website's homepage takeover. So this is even more than your run of site banner ad. This is the takeover ad. The Snap spokesperson confirmed this on Tuesday. I don't know that we need to go into a lot more detail on what this is. This essentially would be in stories, in multiple different versions of stories. They're our stories, or checks out a publisher's Discover channel, or you're watching a friend or a celebrity story. At one point after that story played, you would see, and everybody in the U.S. who's on Snapchat would then see this advertiser's ad. It's called Snap Ads Max Reach. Ross, what are your thoughts? I mean, I think it's one more avenue to try to get attention, but it also goes away from the targeted advertising that you have been discussing.
Yeah, I think how it's a little tricky on the surface because of your point that you bring up, right? You're thinking, wait a minute, isn't the glory of digital advertising that I can target, certain people, and why would I want to have this max coverage? And I think there's two reasons why. The first thing is because, notice this and the last one, they're all coming down because these big players who have old school thinking about marketing, they do things with this mass broadcast type of mentality, and so they're like, well, how can we have everybody see this ad, right? They want to be able to, hey, we've got the budget, we want to be able to say, we want everybody to see this ad on this thing. Okay, that's one piece. But what I'll say is the other piece that's interesting here is that it can be on one story. So the story itself can actually be your targeting in reverse. So in that sense, what if I want all people who are snowboarders to see my ad, right? And it's the same thing. It's about market penetration. So like compare that to other ads where you can run an ad and say, okay, cool. Let's say someone's running an ad, a Facebook ad or something like that, and they're going, okay, great. 20,000 people are going to see it. But the addressable market is 80,000, let's say. That's a small market, but let's just call it 80,000. And I only got 20,000. So what if I want everybody? Because now if I rerun another ad, I'm going to get 20,000 random people. I'm never going to get to know that everybody saw it. So when you're talking about the feedback that you get, what if I could get this in front of every particular person who is in this context or in this market, targeting them with the story, and so I can get feedback for my testing. Oh, let's see how that worked. Maybe you're doing it for A/B testing, or maybe you're doing it on that type of scale, and you want to optimize, especially when you get later into real-time optimization. That's when I think that's worth putting your money down and saying, okay, bam, we want the tightest data set, right, we can get. So we've gone out to everywhere and we've ran this ad, because it also starts to leave data dust. It starts to tell you about your audience more and about the whole audience. So it could be used as a market research simultaneously, triggering those things. So I think there's a lot with a lot of these stories. People glance through them, they're thumbing through them, and they're like, "Hey, okay, this is that." And it's like, well, there's a lot going on in this story that's going on, and the reasons why people are doing it. How's it, and that's where shows like this are great, because you get to deep dive into it and say, wait a minute, I might have just passed that story and just thought, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting, but why would they want to do that? And all of a sudden you're going, whoa, there's a lot more to the news than on the surface.
Yeah, I agree. Christian, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that, I'm going to go back to just what I said a minute ago. I think that this also might set some precedents here, and help Snapchat actually kind of get back in the game and help them have also more of an influence on other sites. I mean, like Instagram, for instance, has Instagram Marquee, and there's Twitter's First View, their takeover options. But the thing with this is that, it guarantees that a brand's ad will be served to everyone, based on what they're viewing and whatnot. So I like the fact that Snapchat again is trying to be a little bit different with some of the ways they're implementing some of these things.
Yeah, I agree. I think that wraps this up. I think we've done all the stories we have for tonight. Christian, you have a little slide for us, and then you have some tools.
Definitely. And by the way, it was really funny. I was thinking about tonight's show. I was like, everything we talked about was ads.
Yep.
But nothing wrong with that, or at least some form of advertising, I guess.
That's right. It's whatever the week gives us.
So actually, let's cut back to our tool, or we'll start with our tools actually. But I do want to have everybody just give you guys a quick thought here, and that's like if you have questions on anything, and you don't want to put them in the the Facebook in the Facebook Live video in the comments there, or you're watching the replay say up on YouTube or on the blog, and you don't want to put them there. You can also go to socialchefs.com/social-snacks, and you can record a question for us, and it's something that if we get a really good question, we want to get in the habit of having that featured on the show, or featured in some capacity. So feel free to go to that link and let us know. Because again, I mean, it's not just about us saying, hey, here's the news, here's what's going on. We also want to help you as a business. So if you have certain things that come up, you need help with, just a simple question on something, go to that link and just let us know.
Excellent. And what are our tools for tonight?
Yeah, so let's talk tools. Okay, so the first tool we have tonight is actually called Missing Lettr. And for those of you who you're finding it's difficult to get people back to your website, for instance, getting website traffic, or you've written, here's the thing, we're creating more and more content. But the thing is, unless you keep a spreadsheet and you track all of this stuff as it's being published, you're going to forget about it. And so what's really neat about Missing Lettr is it basically will let you create a single campaign, because here's the thing, if you're a very big company, you're already creating campaigns and you're consistently doing that. But if you're a small business, you need to be thinking in terms of campaigns. And what you can do with this is, let's say you publish an evergreen piece of content. This is something that you can publish and it pretty much will last the entire year or beyond that. You can put this into Missing Lettr. It will automatically create a year's worth of content basically for you, and you can go back and tweak it. It'll grab the images from your blog. It might grab some of the, if you've got a tweetable, it might grab that, and it will make graphics and text, and it will recommend the hashtags for you as well that you should include. And you can schedule these out right now across, so I think it's Twitter, Google+, I think it also is supporting, LinkedIn, and they're working on, that's tool number 1. It's called Missing Lettr. So
very cool.
I use this. If you guys have been following the Social Chefs Twitter account, I've been taking some of the content that I write that I know is content that should constantly be out there being published, and I created a couple of different tweets that go along with it, to keep it fresh and to keep it in front of everyone. So that's Missing Lettr for you.
Right.
Ross or Nick, have you guys used this tool before?
I have not used it. I have not, and I'm not. What are your thoughts, Ross? I don't know if I will be using it because I'm not doing a lot of blog posts myself.
Well, I'll tell you what I think about that, and I checked it out. I hadn't used it, but I went through it and some of the features. And the funny thing is, it's really compelling, actually. I'm a tools guy. I know, what tools do you use? I have some of mine, and I'm a growth hacker, so I will wire things. Here's what I think about this tool, why it's powerful. It actually does some things that I strategically do with my own content already. So I think there's huge value there in it. What I liked about this is the fact that you just wrote the blog post. And when you write your blog post, now if you have a couple of images, like I add image quotes at the bottom of mine so people can tweet them out. I use Tweet This, and so I can take things like that. What it's doing essentially, though, is doing that for you. So if you have a long blog post and you have 2 or 3 images, it'll start pulling quotes as images. It'll start taking images with little snippets. It'll do all these, and it lays it all out for you so that you can just go through and adjust. That's what I really like is the interface is really nice and easy to use to make those adjustments. And then bam, when you say okay, you've got 12 months, once a month. See, most people don't repost their stuff. They don't even post it with different titles or different things to see if they get more clicks, whether they're using it to test or whatnot. I think the fact of what all it does for somebody to just lay that out as a creative kind of mind map almost style visual where you can go, okay, here's what, if I was properly promoting this, here's what my blog post turned into a campaign is. I do that personally in the way I design my content. It's got audio, it's got video, it's got all these tweetable quotes, it's got image graphics, it's got all that. And then I use those in reverse to promote the content. So now I've got like 5 or 6 things to promote the actual blog post that each have their own value built into them. I think this tool does a lot of that. And, you know, to me, that's pretty impressive. A lot of tools, they're redundant and they don't actually add much value. I think this one looks pretty darn impressive.
And they've got a couple of different plans, by the way. They've got you see here a personal and a business plan, but they also, if you look at the bottom here, if you go to the link that Nick's going to share, they just go to the free plan option, and that will actually get you something that, if you want to just try this out and you want to start with something like that, I mean, it's worth trying. Try it for like a couple of months, see how it actually, like, if it does help you. I actually think it will help you, sharing that content. So. And
before we get to the last tool, I do want to thank some of our viewers here tonight for joining, because we're going to try and wrap it up in the next 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. We've got Jessica Phillips tuning in, Nat Wang is tuning in, Joanne Kroll, thank you for tuning in, and Mia Voss has been here, Joe Wilson, and Melissa G., one of our longtime listeners. So thank you all for being here and supporting the show. Much appreciated. Christian, what is our last tool for the evening?
So the last tool is Command Analytics and Stats for Instagram. And this one, I really like this tool. It's a freemium tool. It's basically an app. It's it's free, and then you have like some additional purchases you can make to get access to certain things. But what this does, so okay, if you're on Instagram, for instance, and you want to actually track your statistics, if you're a regular Instagram user, you really can't do a lot of that. You have to bump up to an Instagram business profile. But with an Instagram business profile, you only can track certain things as well with that. So what this does is it opens the doors on all of this tracking data. So they got some really cool stuff. You can do competitor research. They will give you, so for instance, you can search anybody who's got a public account and see their stats, kind of see like how well they're doing, types of content they're publishing, when they're publishing it, how often they're publishing it. They will also then give you suggestions on when you should be posting, the post over time engagement. So that way, Instagram, it's a great tool, a great platform. But the challenge with it is, there's a lot of content you have to really scroll through to really, look at anything. And so with this, it pulls everything together for you. So you can look at your competitors. You can also, though, track your followers. You can track your total likes that you're getting, number of posts you're doing. What's your follower growth? Are you adding followers? Are you losing ones? Are you adding more people? How many comments you're getting? How many comments you're getting per post? So you're getting a lot of really good access to this data. But they're also giving you some other cool stuff: global hashtags, global filters, and global best times. So you're able to see, based on what I'm currently doing and what I'm getting out of my information, how does that compare to the global side of things? Am I using the right hashtags? Am I using the right filters maybe with my content? So that is Instagram's Command Analytics and Stats for Instagram. And I want to show you guys a couple of screens here actually from it. So I mean, you got some really cool stuff. You got the track and follow feature. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't see any of this data on Instagram right now. Anything to this like magnitude. I've got a report card giving me, how well am I actually doing on my account? I mean, everybody wants to get all A's, don't they? So, and then here's your research for your competitors as well. You can see their growth over time, and then you also can get an idea of the best times to post. So that's the last tool I have for everybody.
Excellent. With that, I'd like to ask Ross Quintana to, I'm trying to get it right, Ross. I'm trying to get it right because I'm so used to saying it the other way, the way we talked about before we started. I wanted to ask you, Ross, to tell us where people can find you and maybe put that in the Facebook comments for us if they want to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. They can. Twitter is a great place. I'm always on Twitter. Ross_Quintana. Connect as far as how I use the platforms. If you want to see cool stuff that I like, visual stuff, you're into design, all that, check my Pinterest out. Instagram, I'm doing a mix of personal and business stuff, and I'm getting ready to launch some digital products. And so I kind of got my journey to hopefully $1 million product. Maybe let's make it $1 billion while we're at it. But so I'm gonna have that same thing. Snapchat, Facebook is a great place to send me a friend request, whatever, because we can connect. And my blog is socialmagnets.net.
Socialmagnets.net. So thank you so much, Ross. It was a real pleasure having you on, and I'm glad that we finally got to meet digital eyeball to digital eyeball.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you guys for having me, and thanks for this show because I think you guys you're keeping people informed and you're bringing it to them and serving it up in a way that they can digest the important things. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Christian, you want to wrap us up?
Definitely. So just a quick heads up to everyone. We'll be back here live next week, next Thursday at 9 p.m. At facebook.com/social chefs. And if you want to get on our email list, we'll send out a blog recap. It'll have the video. It'll also have all of the topics that we've talked about, links to the tools, and so forth. So just go to socialchefs.com/subscribe. And don't forget to connect with us on social, on our social channels. We'd love to, get to know you, help to solve, some of your problems or answer questions that you have. So we're at Social Chefs on every single platform. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. It's been a fabulous show. Ross, thanks again for being a guest this week. This was a very, very, very enlightening show. Nick, thanks again also for keeping us on track. I love that we try to hit that 10 o'clock mark every single Thursday. So we will see you guys next week.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.